The first time. Come on, we need to bid if you want to buy it. Don't wait. 1,110,000. What can I say? 20, 30, you tell me. At $1,110,000 for a lovely slice of Caulfield real estate here to be sold today. And I call it once. I'm not going inside. I call it twice. At 1,110,000. Be prepared for this. I'll be dealing with a lady on my left who showed some courage to bid in the first place. At $1,110,000. Are we all finished? 1.15. You're not finished. Thank you, sir. At 1,150,000 now. At 1,160,000. At 1,160,000. 70 or 80. 1,170,000. At $1,170,000. $1,180,000. Who's going to buy the property? Because the property is for sale. It's on the market. You've all heard the expression. It's on the market at 1,190 and we're selling to the highest bidder. $1,200,000. At $1,200,000. At $1,200,000. Selling to the highest bidder here and now. First call. At $1,200,000. Don't shake his hand. He hasn't bought it yet. $1,210,000. At $1,210,000. At $1,210,000. Where's your voice, madam? At $1,210,000. 25. I understand. At $1,225,000. 30 if you like, sir. At $1,225,000. Ladies and gentlemen, show me another block of this size in this location, anything like this figure. At $1,225,000 and we sell. Call it once. 30. 1,230,000. At $1,230,000. Don't worry who it is, madam. We're selling it to him if you don't bid. At $1,230,000. At $1,230,000. At $1,230,000. Ladies, what's it to be? At $1,230,000. Haven't forgotten you either, sir. At $1,230,000, like to add to it. At another 10,000, don't you ask him. A bit more enthusiasm. $1,240,000, you're buying real estate. At $1,240,000. At $1,240,000 now. At $1,240,000 on bid. First call. Ladies, what's happening over there? At $1,240,000, this is not a tea party, this is not. $1,240,000, $245,000. At $1,245,000. At no gimmicks, no lollies, no coffee. It's a proper real estate auction. We don't need the gimmicks. At $1,245,000. I call it once. At $1,245,000, the bid is there. 50. At $1,250,000, creeping up behind me. At $1,250,000, that's the bid, sir. At $1,250,000, there's the bidder. 5. At $1,265,000, 60. At $1,260,000, 1.3. 10. At $1,310,000, 1,350,000, 60. At $1,360,000, at $1,360,000, showing no favouritism. At $1,360,000, at $1,360,000, the knockout punch over here at the moment. Better than Cassius Clay, remember him? At $1,360,000, 70. 80. At $1,380,000, at $1,380,000. 1,410,000, at $1,410,000, it's only money. At $1,410,000.
Only money, mate.
Sorry?
Only money.
Not a lot anymore, is it? Especially while you've got it. At $1,410,000, this gentleman here. At $1,420,000. 20. 30. Yeah, why not? At $1,430,000. At $1,430,000. I wish I had two of them. At $1,430,000. At $1,430,000. At $1,440,000. $1,440,000, $1,450,000, yeah, it's funny. Haven't even got the hand in your pocket yet. At $1,450,000.
Didn't go deep, yeah.
You got the deposit in there, have you? Yeah. At $1,450,000. At $1,450,000. At $1,450,000, you're still with us, sir. At $1,450,000. There's 5. $1,455,000. What does that make? 3 million. Like you said, I call it. At $1,455,000.
Next door, I'll give you 3 million. List next door, I'll
next
give you
door,
3
yeah?
million.
Okay, where's next door? Is he here? At $1,455,000, it's his bid. 60. At 1,460,000. At 1,460,000. At 1,460,000 now. At 1,460,000. We're going to sell. Call it once. Where? Is that a bid? No, it's just gentlemen sucking on a lolly there. At 1,460,000. At 1,400,000. How is it? At $1,460,000. At 1,460,000 on bid. Are you still with me, sir? No, you've had enough. Looks like you've got it. At 1,460,000. Don't look so nervous. At 1,460,000. At 1,460,000 going once. Anybody else? At 1,460,000 going twice. 65. 70. 1,470,000. Madam out the back, would you like to make a bid? You nearly did. At 1,400,000, yes, 75. At 1,475,000. 1,500,000. At 1,505,000. At 1,505,000. You were waiting too, sir. Amazing game, isn't it? We're buying real estate in Caulfield. I told you it was hot. At $1,505,000. Now against you. Now you're in the back pockets. At 1,500,000.
Yeah, I'm in the back pockets now. Let's see if I got more money.
Much more fun in the front pockets. At $1,505,000. The lady against the fence is holding the bid. At 1,505,000. What do you think? At 1,505,000. Call it once. Be prepared to miss, sir. At 1,505,000. Call it twice. You done? You finished?
I'm going to check with the boss.
Check with the boss. I'll give you a moment. I'll give you the same amount of time, madam. At $1,500,000. 505 would have 1,510. 1,510. 1,512 and a half. At 1,512 and a half. At 1,515. At 1,515. Check with the boss. At 1,515. At 1,515 at the rear. More paper. At 1,515 we have once, twice. At 1,515,000 I'm going to sell it. There's no further bid.
One more.
1,517 and a half. 1,520. 1,520. You've been a great competitor, Sam. At 1,520. At 1,520. At $1,520,000. At 1,520. The lady with the phone to your ear. At 1,520 on bid. Last opportunity. You're out. You're out, sir. You sure? You're out. Don't want to miss anybody. At 1,520. Just make a little less noise at the moment, Elsa. You made a lot at the beginning, but it's got to be there at the end. At 1,520 on bid, and I'm going to sell it at the rear. Once, twice, all finished, all done. Then the property is sold. I congratulate the winning bidder. Commiserate the losing one.